Every choice you make creates a neon echo that resonates through the digital landscape of your life. We follow these echoes to find the stories of survival, hope, and the ultimate triumph of the spirit. Click subscribe now and hear the truth in every single echo.
He had a folder, an actual manila folder, the old-fashioned kind, with a little tab on top. He set it on the table between us like it was a business meeting. Like we were strangers negotiating a contract instead of siblings who used to share a bathroom and fight over the last of the cereal. "I just want to be fair," my brother said. I looked at the folder. I didn't touch it. "You should read it," he said. "There's a lot here you don't know about." I thought about the last time I'd sat across from him. It was 2021. I was in a hospital waiting room at 2 in the morning, wearing the same clothes I'd had on for 36 hours, and I was begging him on the phone to help me. Not to come, not to cancel anything, just to wire me money so I could bring my daughter home. He told me not to ruin the trip. So no, I didn't touch the folder. My husband's name was Adam. He was 31 years old when he died, which still feels wrong to say out loud. 31 is not an age people are supposed to die. He was healthy. He ran half marathons. He made his own pasta on Sunday afternoons and took it very seriously like it was a craft. He drove carefully. He always used his signal. None of that mattered on a Tuesday in October when a driver ran a red light at 60 miles an hour. I got the call at work. I was a school librarian at the time. I had just finished shelving a cart of picture books. The officer on the phone said, "Ma'am, are you the wife of Adam Reeves?" And I remember thinking very clearly that I needed to finish the cart first. I had maybe 12 books left. I thought, let me just finish the cart, and then whatever comes next, I can handle it. I didn't finish the cart. I was 29 years old, 7 months pregnant, and the man I had built my entire life around was gone before I even made it to the hospital to say goodbye. The days after that are a blur. My mother-in-law flew in that night. She held me in the hospital hallway and just let me fall apart, and she didn't say anything about sins or silver linings, or God's plan, or any of the things people say when they don't know what else to do. She just held on. I will never forget that. My own parents called the next morning. My mother cried, which I appreciated. My father said he was so sorry, which he meant, I think. They were 3 states away. They said they would come, as soon as they could figure out logistics. They didn't come. I told myself they were overwhelmed. I told myself grief looks different on different people. I told myself a lot of things that year, because the alternative, really sitting with what their absence meant, was more than I could carry on top of everything else. My daughter was born 6 weeks early. Her name is Juniper, Junie, mostly. She came into the world small and loud and furious, and I loved her so immediately and so completely that it felt like being hit by something. She was in the NICU for 19 days. I sat next to her incubator for hours at a time and talked to her, told her about her dad, told her about the pasta, told her she had his nose. The medical bills started arriving before she was even home. I want to be specific here, because people sometimes assume that when you say medical bills, you mean inconvenient copays. I mean $44,000. I mean a billing coordinator sitting me down and explaining that my insurance had covered a significant portion, but not all, and that there were outstanding balances across 3 separate providers, and that the hospital itself had a policy regarding extended NICU stays, and I'm paraphrasing, but only slightly, that I would need to make arrangements before my daughter could be discharged. I remember sitting there thinking, she is a person. She is a 7-pound person who has been alive for 19 days, and I cannot take her home unless I come up with money I don't have. I had some savings. Adam had a small life insurance policy that hadn't assessed yet. My mother-in-law helped with what she could, but she was retired on a fixed income, and there was a limit to what she was able to do. I was short by about $22,000 when I started making calls. The first call I made was to my parents. My mother answered. I explained everything: the bills, the amount, the timeline. I told her I wasn't asking for a gift. I was asking for a loan. I would sign something, I would pay them back with interest. I just needed help right now in this moment because I was 3 weeks out from losing my husband, and my daughter was still in the hospital, and I was drowning. There was a long pause. Then my mother said she needed to talk to my father. She called back 2 hours later. My father did most of the talking. He said they were very sorry. He said they wished they could do more. He said that they had already committed a significant amount of money, his words, significant amount, to a trip they'd been planning for over a year. A cruise. 2 weeks. They were leaving in 9 days. We've already paid the deposits, he said. If we cancel now, we lose almost $8,000. I said, Dad, my daughter is in the NICU. He said, we know, sweetheart, we know. But we can't just throw away $8,000. That's not how you handle money responsibly. I didn't say anything. If it's really an emergency, he said, maybe you should look into a personal loan or talk to the hospital about a payment plan. My mother made a soft sound in the background. I don't know if it was agreement or discomfort. I've thought about it a lot since then. I called my brother next. He's 5 years older than me, always been the practical one, the one who has a plan for everything. I thought maybe he would hear what I was saying differently. I thought maybe he would be the one to step in. He picked up on the second ring. I told him the same things I'd told my parents. He listened. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said, I hear you. I really do. But you have to understand, we've been planning this trip since January. Elise has been looking forward to this for months. It's our anniversary trip. I said, I know, but I need help. Can you help me? We're going with Mom and Dad, he said. We leave in 9 days. I can't cancel now. I'm not asking you to cancel, I said, which was a lie, but I was desperate enough to say anything. Can you send me money? Can you wire me something to get me through this? He was quiet for a second. How much? He asked. I told him. He exhaled like I'd asked him for something unreasonable. Like I'd asked to borrow his car for the weekend. He said, That's a lot of money, Meredith. Meredith, that's me. I know it is, I said. We can't just do that, he said. We don't have that liquid right now. This was not true. I found out later it was not true. But in that moment, I didn't push back. I was too tired to push back. Can you lend me anything? I said, even a portion. He said he would have to talk to Elise. He never called back. They all went on the cruise. My mother sent me a photo from the ship. I don't know why she did that. Maybe she wanted me to see that they were thinking of me. Maybe she didn't think about it at all. There was a sunset in the background, and little drinks with umbrellas, and everyone was smiling. My daughter came home 12 days after that phone call. I paid the remaining balance on a combination of a personal loan at a brutal interest rate, a withdrawal from a retirement account that cost me a penalty, and a payment plan with one of the providers that I spent the next 3 years paying off. I did it alone. My mother-in-law drove me home from the hospital. She carried the car seat. She had stocked my refrigerator. On the kitchen counter, she'd left a card that said, She made it. You made it. Adam would be so proud. I sat down on the floor in the middle of my kitchen and held my daughter and cried for a long time. I wrote my husband a letter that night, just for me, not to send anywhere. I told him what had happened. I told him I was so angry I couldn't breathe. I told him about Junie's fingers, how small they were, how she curled them around my thumb, like she was already holding on for both of us. I stopped taking my parents' calls after that. My brother texted once when they got back from the cruise. How are you holding up? And I stared at it for a long time before I put my phone down without answering. That was the last contact we had for 4 years. I rebuilt slowly. I went back to work when Junie was 4 months old, because I had to. My mother-in-law watched her 3 days a week, and I cobbled together childcare for the rest. We moved to a smaller apartment. I made a budget and stuck to it, and it was tight in a way that was almost funny sometimes, except it wasn't funny. But I had good people around me. A friend from college, Petra, wait, no. A friend I'd known since my mid-20s. I'll call her Lark, because that's what we called her, a nickname from years back. Lark showed up on weekends with food and terrible movies, and she never made me feel like a burden for needing her. My neighbor, an older woman named Dot, used to knock on my door with casseroles and ask about Junie like she was already hers. These were the people who held me up. My parents sent gifts on Junie's birthday, cards on holidays. My mother texted occasionally, thinking of you, and I responded with one word when I responded at all. I wasn't doing it out of cruelty. I was doing it out of self-preservation. Every time I saw a message from them, I felt the floor drop out from under me a little. It was easier to keep the distance. My brother I didn't hear from at all. I think he knew what he'd done. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he never thought about it. I genuinely couldn't tell you which one would have been worse. Then, in the spring of last year, I got a call from an attorney. My parents had died. My father first, a heart attack in January, and then my mother 9 weeks later, which the doctor called cardiac complications, but which I think was grief. Because she had loved my father for 40 years and couldn't figure out how to be in the world without him. I had found out about both deaths the way you find out about things when you've been cut off. Secondhand, late, through people who assumed I already knew. I didn't go to the funerals. By the time I found out about them, they were already over. The attorney was calling about the estate. My parents had, it turned out, considerably more money than I had ever understood. They'd been careful all their lives. My father worked in insurance for 30 years, my mother was a bookkeeper, they'd bought their house in the 80s and paid it off. And then bought another property, and that one too. They had investment accounts, they had savings bonds going back to the 90s. When the attorney laid it out, the total estate was somewhere in the range of $1.4 million. I sat with that number for a long time. I thought about $44,000. I thought about $8,000 in cruise deposits. I thought about a photo of a sunset and little drinks with umbrellas. The attorney explained that my parents had left a will. Most of the estate was designated to my brother. There was a smaller amount designated to me, about 11% of the total. But the will had a clause my brother was apparently relying on, a provision that said any heir who had been estranged from the family for a period of more than 2 years, without cause, could have their share contested. My brother had hired a lawyer. He was arguing that I had estranged myself without cause, and therefore my share of the estate should revert to him. I sat in my car in the parking lot outside the attorney's office for a long time after that meeting. Junie was at school. The radio was off. I just sat there and thought about everything that had happened, start to finish, and I tried to figure out what the right thing to do was. Because here's the thing about cutting people off. People assume it means you stop caring. That's not how it works. Not for me, anyway. I had grieved my parents for 4 years. I had grieved them quietly, in the middle of the night, on their birthdays. Every time Junie did something new, and I thought they should be here for this. The estrangement was never about wanting them gone. It was about surviving the weight of their absence when I needed them most. And now my brother wanted to take what was legally mine and call it justice. I met with my brother for the first time in 4 years at a coffee shop near his office. He looked older. We both did. He had brought the folder. He slid it across the table and said, "I just want to be fair." Inside were documents, financial records going back years, correspondence I'd never seen, some kind of valuation assessment. He had clearly paid someone a lot of money to build a case. "There's something you need to understand," he said. "Mom and Dad were hurt that you cut them off. They never understood why you did what you did. In their minds, they hadn't done anything wrong." I looked at him. "They didn't cancel the cruise," he said, "because they genuinely didn't think they could afford to lose that money. They were trying to be responsible. They had $1.4 million, I said. He blinked. They didn't have that then. That accumulated over time. They had enough, I said. They chose not to. He looked away. I know it felt that way to you. Felt, past tense, like I had been confused about something that happened to me. I'm not here to relitigate 21, he said. I'm here because I think we can handle this without lawyers. If you walk away now, I'll give you 50,000 as a goodwill gesture. Clean exit. No court, no drama. 50,000 out of 1.4 million. I thought about my retirement account withdrawal. I thought about the interest I'd paid on that personal loan. I thought about 3 years of payment plans and tight budgets, and Junie asking me once why we couldn't go to Disney World like her friend from school. No, I said. He looked surprised, like he'd expected the number to settle it. I'm not accepting 50,000, I said. I'm going to pursue my legal share of the estate, Meredith. And I want you to know, I said, that this isn't about the money. It's about the fact that you sat on a cruise ship while my daughter was in the NICU. It's about the fact that you texted me, how are you holding up when you got back, like nothing had happened. And it's about the fact that right now, after everything, you're sitting across from me with a folder and telling me I estranged myself without cause. He didn't say anything. I know what I'm doing, I said. I picked up my bag. I'll have my attorney contact yours. I walked out of the coffee shop into the cold afternoon and sat in my car for a minute. My hands were shaking a little. Not from fear, something else. Something that had been sitting in my chest for 4 years and had just finally found a direction to go. I write letters to Adam every year. On the anniversary of the accident, I sit down with a cup of coffee and I write him a letter. I tell him about the year. I tell him about Junie, who she's becoming, what she said recently that made me laugh, which books she loves. I don't send them anywhere. I put them in a box that I keep on the top shelf of my closet. This year's letter was different. I told him that I finally stopped waiting for an apology that wasn't coming. I told him that I had spent 4 years being quiet about what happened because I didn't want to be the person who made a crisis out of everything. I told him I had convinced myself that being the bigger person meant absorbing what they did and moving on without comment. But Junie deserves more than what I was left with. She deserves the future her father would have wanted for her. And if fighting for my legal share of that estate is how I build that for her, then that is what I'm going to do. The case is still moving. My attorney is good. She's the kind of person who reads a folder like my brother's and puts it down and says, quietly, he doesn't have anything here. She said the estrangement clause is hard to invoke when there's documented cause, and I have documented cause. I have phone records. I have the payment plan paperwork. I have a personal loan at 19% interest that I took out while my daughter was still in the hospital. I have the photo my mother sent from the ship, the sunset, the little drinks with umbrellas. I kept it. I don't know why, exactly. Maybe because some part of me always knew that one day I'd need to be able to show someone exactly what it looked like. The moment they chose the cruise. People ask me sometimes if I'm doing this out of anger, if it's revenge, if I've thought about what it means to fight your own family in court over money, and I have thought about it. A lot. Here's what I've decided. I'm not doing this because I'm angry, though I was. I'm not doing it because I want to punish them, though I understand why people think that. I'm doing it because my daughter is 7 years old and she has never met her grandparents on my side, and she will grow up with that absence, and the very least I can do is make sure that absence doesn't also follow her into her future in the form of financial insecurity. Adam would have fought for her. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not asking anyone's permission. I'm not looking for a clean exit. I'm fighting